Today I'm going to take this photo and paint it in the style of Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here again. Taking off a massive challenge today. I'm going to try and paint a picture in the style of Renoir. I'm really expecting to crash and burn with this one. Or I was, I kind of giving the game away here. I don't want to give the game away if I think I've achieved it or not. It was really, really difficult. Really, really fun. I do believe I have a very nice painting at the end of this. Let's just say that. Whether it's in the style of Renoir, I will let you guys make up your own mind on that one. And if you like to let me know in the comments below, that would be great. As always, it's nice to see what you people think, and it kind of inspires me to do other stuff. Right, Renoir. Renoir was born in 1841, died in 1919, so he lived to a ripe old age of 78 years. He was born into a very modest family, really. His father was a tailor. They had modest means. They didn't have a lot of money. When he was a child, they moved from, I think it was a small village, but they moved to Paris, and there was close to the Louvre. And although he was good at sketching as a child, he was considered to be a much better singer. And he was encouraged by his choir master to take singing lessons. And I thought that was the route he was going to take. But when he got to 13, his parents couldn't afford to pay for his lessons, and they had to pull him out of school. And he went to work as an apprentice in a porcelain factory. So that was the end of his singing career. But while he worked at the porcelain factory, he spent a lot of time visiting the Louvre in his lunch breaks, and spent a lot of time sketching. And the factory owner recognised his talent, and he encouraged him to take lessons for entry into the École des Beaux-Arts School of Arts, which he did. But unfortunately, the factory, a couple of years later, adopted mechanical reproduction, and that was the end of Renoir's apprenticeship, and he had to leave the porcelain factory and find other ways to make a living to fund his studies. So he did that by painting pictures for overseas missionaries and decorative fans. So quite a mixture, really, of subjects to be working on. Then at the age of 21, he started studying under Charles Glare, and he met Claude Monet. So that's kind of the early years of Renoir. Let's get back to the painting a little bit. I absolutely love Renoir's work, and I love the attention he pays to the faces and the detail in the people and the dappled light that he gets. That his handling of light is absolutely superb, and that was kind of what I was concentrating on, the colour and the light in this painting, which is what kind of intrigues me anyway. Even if I'm not doing a study of anybody, I like to concentrate on the light source and the colour, and all things of that nature. So that's what I was really working on here. I'm not really interested in too much about the lightness. So although when I did show this finished painting to somebody, they knew who was in the painting straight away, so I guess that was okay. And although you can't see it now, I'm working on the face of this is one of my daughters. This is Charlotte, with Killian, who you may know has spent a lot of time in hospital. If you've been following me, you'll know that. Well, there you can see he's out now, which is all good news. He's got a little bump on his head there, but that has now gone. That was to do with fluid on the brain, which has now been resolved. So that's all good news. Just thought I'd throw that in for anybody that was wondering how he was getting on. So this was actually my birthday, and we went out to a place called the Book Cafe in Derby, and we sat out in the sun. It was an absolutely fabulous day. I did do a sketch on my phone while I was there, and there was a guy in the background. I did record it, but I've not made a video of it for some reason. I don't know why. And there's a guy playing a piano accordion, and it did feel very French. Sat there in the sun outside listening to this guy playing the piano accordion. On this painting, I particularly like painting the window. I think I was started to say that earlier and then got sidetracked. Because I guess you're not going to see much of the window now, because I sort of got into that early on, because I was sort of really intrigued with how I was going to do with that. And I built it up on a couple of layers. So I sort of painted the window, and then I created a new layer, or two new layers, one multiply and one add, I think, and did some highlights and lowlights, reflections in the window to get that effect. So, as you can see, I am using lots and lots of colour here, because Renoir's paintings they're all full of colour. What I did notice, all these brush strokes followed the contours of the people or the objects that he was painting. So that's what I've tried to achieve here. I've sort of followed the lines of the arms and the clothing and the legs to painting, give it form. He did a lot of that with his brush strokes, which I've obviously tried to copy. I've got nice strong shadows. I wanted this again, I'm talking about the light. And one of the things that I really liked about this photo was the strong shadow on the pavement. And I wanted to make sure that I got that in. That felt quite important to set the mood of the light, really. So anyway, back to Renoir. As I said, when he was 21, he went to study with Charles Glare, and he met Claude Monet. And obviously they formed a close friendship. But for the next 8 years, he struggled at times, and he didn't even have enough money to buy paint. So he really was on hard times and a proper struggling artist. But he did have his first success at the Salon in 1868 with his painting Lisa with Parasol. And that was pretty much it with the success with the Salon in the early years. And in 1874, at the age of 33, after a series of rejections from the Salon, he joined forces with Monet and Pissarro and a few others. And as I'm sure you have guessed, they formed the artists that became the Impressionists, and they put on the first Impressionist exhibition. And although it did get some criticism, actually Renoir was fairly well received in that exhibition. And he exhibited in the first 3 Impressionist exhibitions. And the first one he did mostly portraits, and then the second one it was a bit more diverse subjects. And he exhibited in the third one as well. Then after that, instead of exhibiting in the Impressionist exhibitions, he went back to the Salon, and he became quite a fashionable painter, especially after completing some paintings for somebody called Marguerite Charpentier, I think was her name, and her children. And she was a French Salonist and an art collector. And that kind of launched his career and made him very popular. And he worked for the rest of his life as a painter. But in 1892, he developed rheumatic arthritis. So for the last 20 years of his life, he was painting with a disability, which did progressively get worse and worse and worse. And he had to move to a warmer climate. And in his later years, he couldn't even pick the brushes up. He could hold the brush if somebody, his assistant, placed it in his hand. And he also had paintings put on a pulley system that he could move around, so he could work on large format paintings and sort of get them at eye level because of his disability. And he also had a problem with his shoulder as well. So he really suffered in the last 20 years of his life. But in the year he died, or before he died, he visited the Louvre to see his works hanging alongside the great masters. So imagine that. He'd gone from not even being able to afford paint and struggling to buy the paint to do his, commissions or whatever he was working on, to walking into the Louvre and seeing his picture hanging in there. You cannot be more accepted than that by society. And you have reached the pinnacle in your lifetime. So that must have been absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal as well. If I could learn to speak. So that was Renoir. And, absolutely stunning painter. Let's get back to my painting now. I'm sort of working my way through the characters, and I did pretty much finish them one at a time. I worked on the two girls at the front, and then the guy with his back, and the furniture that they were sitting on as well. So it kind of went person, furniture around them, next person, furniture around them. So although I'd roughed their figures in initially, I kind of went in and painted them and finished each character in turn, which is, I suppose that's a bit unusual for me. I kind of much more used to jumping all over the place and bringing the painting to a certain level across the whole painting rather than finishing little bits. But this time, I don't know why, it just felt right to just work on each character one in turn. And I was looking at the Renoir painting all the time for reference to the colours and how he had the light reflecting. Now I'm looking at the Renoir and seeing these sort of light circles on the back of the guy right in the foreground leaning on the chair. In my mind, I was thinking that's because it's dappled light through the trees, and not where we were sitting. There were no trees at all. It was just on a street. So I thought I can't really put them in. I was dying to. I felt that I wanted to have these sort of circles of light over the whole thing, but it would have just been wrong because there were no trees in my scene. So I compromised a bit, definitely in the shadow on the floor, by adding sort of circles of colour, and you can see all over it I've put local areas of quite contrasting colours and things in there. So I'm sort of working my way along, really from right to left, painting the characters. Well, I guess I didn't really. I did Charlotte on the right, and then I did Frances, my other daughter, who's on the mobile phone. I put the phone in because I thought that was, this is a typical street scene of today, and everybody uses mobile phones, so I thought it was really apt and appropriate that she was on the phone, and I wanted that to be kind of a social statement in my painting. I do that a lot. I've always looked for things that are relevant for the time, just to add a social comment to make it more relevant and not just a painting. So it tells a story a little bit as well. So I'm working on the last figure now, putting in the final details, working on the face, and I'm sort of bringing in highlights, and then I sort of go into the jacket as well, and I start adding some colour to that. I just felt that felt a bit dreary. It all looked a bit sort of grey, and Renoir's not about grey at all really. He's into these vibrant colours which I keep banging on about. So there we go, I start putting a few colours in there and blending them down, and you can see I'm putting them in the hair of the people as well. And then I go into the foreground and put some colours into those shadows to just finish off this painting, which I really did enjoy doing. I hope you like this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up as always. It's much appreciated, it helps me out a lot. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I have lots of videos like this, and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.